Hi everyone, welcome to the Centralized Authentication with Apache APISIX Plugins video tutorial. My name is Bobur, I am a developer advocate. Today we are going to talk about the use case and the benefits of Centralized Authentication with Apache APISIX API Gateway. We'll demonstrate how to configure common authentication plugins like Basic or Key Authentication or JWT to protect your services. So let's get started. Apache APISIX is an open source API gateway. It offers services to manage your traffic such as rate limiting, observability, logging, and built-in authentication plugins. It also has a custom plugin that allows additional side effects, and the one that we are going to be focusing on in particular, OAuth plugins. APISIX is now open to cooperation with various plugin functions for new adoption, and the plugin library is relatively rich. At present, it can already work with a large number of authenticate related plugins, as you can see on the plugin hub page. API authentication is all about proving or verifying the identity of the people accessing your system. It's a process of using a software protocol to ensure that clients on the network are who they claim to be before granting them access. There are several methods of API authentication. Here are some of the most popular we are reviewing today: HTTP Basic Authentication, API Key Authentication, and OAuth Authentication. Firstly, let's talk about Centralized Authentication model. Apache APISIX can be used as a Centralized Authentication gateway. For example, you have three services that you want to expose. The diagram on the left shows a more common traditional authentication approach. Each application service model goes to develop a separate authentication module that is used to support a set of process handling for authentication. But when the volume of service increases, it becomes clear that development workload of these modules is huge and repetitive. At such times, we can achieve unification and reduce the amount of development by placing this part of the development logic in the Apache APISIX gateway. As shown in the figure on the right, the user or application party can directly request Apache APISIX. And then Apache APISIX passes the authenticated identity information to the upstream application after it has been identified and authenticated. And then upstream application service can read this information from the request header, then process the subsequent related work. Here we can discover yet another advanced usage of APISIX as an authentication handler. The API gateway can be typically where we do all of the interactions with IDP, identity provider, for those upstream services. It means it alone interacts with identity provider. It only has to know how to deal with the authentication logic, and by avoiding the need to repeat the development of authentication code for each application. There is a variety of IDP providers such as Okta, Cognito, Azure Active Directory, and more. The process of centralized authentication is shown in the figure. First, the user initiates the request, and then the front gateway is responsible for the user authentication process, interfacing with the identity provider and sending an authorization request to the IDP. Then IDP returns the user information. After only the gateway completes the user identification, it forwards the user identity information to the backend application in the form of, let's say, request header. The simplest way to handle authentication is through the use of HTTP whereas the username and password are sent alongside every API call. You can use an HTTP header and encode the username and password. Or another API key authentication. This technique creates a unique keys for users and passes them with every request. The API generates a secret key that's long, difficult to guess, a string of numbers, maybe letters, at least 30 characters long. Although there is no set standard length, it is typically passed alongside the API authorization header. Yet another widely used technique, JWT, JSON Web Token, is a secure authentication mechanism that leads authorization to critical resources. Typically, a private key or a text secret is used by the issuer to sign the JWT. Then the receiver of the JWT will verify the signature to ensure that the token hasn't been altered after it was signed for the first time by the issuer. The total integrity of the whole JWT mechanism depends on the signing secret. That makes it difficult for unauthenticated resources to guess the signing key and attempt to change the claims within the JWT. So enough theory for today. Let's jump into some experimental work. Well, if you go to Apache APISIX official website and go to Docs, Apache APISIX and Plugins, under Authentication section, you can find these authentication plugins like Basic, one or Key Authentication, the last one JWT. All the things I'm going to demo today, including curl commands, you can find in my GitHub repository. You can just navigate to APISIX Authentication Plugins under my GitHub profile. In this repository, you can find the link to GitHub page. If you open the GitHub page, there is a documentation and curl command examples, how that explains each step we are going to go through today, like HTTP basic authentication, some commands, and the APISIX server response with examples provided. So the first things first, you need to have a basic concept where before using these authentication plugins about Apache APISIX. You can have a look at documentation or read about what is the route in API Gateway or upstream and the plugin means. So after that, you can try to install the Apache APISIX via Docker or Docker Compose. There are other ways of installing the Apache APISIX, explained in Apache APISIX official website. If you follow the link and go to install Apache APISIX, there are several ways of how you can set up it. So now let's start with simplest authentication plugin, how we can enable basic auth for our route. In my case, for the demo purpose, I prepared already an upstream. I have an upstream created. Now, before enabling the basic authentication for the route, we need to create a new consumer and then configure the value of username and password. To do so, I can jump into the terminal and then I can create my consumer that uses our upstream service, let's say, or our service, the customer or user of our service. I will bring this curl command to say I have consumer username called foo. We can give any username, and also configuring the plugins section I am defining the basic authentication and with the following input, like username, any username, and the password to access the API. This basic authentication information will be sent in the header when you do an API request. Let's press enter and run the command. As you can see, APISIX server responding us with 200 HTTP status. It means and it's all right. The consumer successfully created. Afterwards, we need to add a route and allow basic authentication to control the requests by specifying it in plugin settings. I can also bring another curl command and paste it here. What does it mean? That here I am again accessing admin API, the routes configuration path, and then saying, okay, for this route, for all receiving methods, all the receiving methods get, let's say if any request coming with the get method against this URA, we are switching on basic authentication well before we pass the request to our upstream services up to down, right? Let's run this command. What happened? Now we got an again successful response. What does it mean? That we mapped the route upstream with a plugin configuration. So up to now we have all set, and we can test the different cases below. Let's say now we assume that authentication is enabled. I will try to run the simple curl command to get against the get endpoint. So press enter. Yeah, as we expected, we are missing authorization in the request. So our plugin is working fine right now. As you can see, we got 401 unauthorized error. Now all the requests coming to your upstream or set of services will be unauthorized, will throw the unauthorized error, because we have control on the route level. So what if I actually send the correct API request with a header? Let's say I will say Carlo provide a header, user header, like with username and password, and again request this API. In this case, of course, I will get success response from the APISIX server. So now it's good. It means we have tested one positive case and negative case. There is another scenario that we can also consider, like what if we have wrong user credentials, like user name or user password might be wrong. To test it, I can just simply run this command and press enter. Yeah, it is as we expected. Again, like password is invalid, and because here I put the wrong password instead of my strong password. So it is simple. With the simple steps, we enabled basic authentication. Now I'm going to demo Apache APISIX Key Auth plugin. If you go to again the official website and go to Apache APISIX, under plugins and authentication, there is an option for Key Auth. Key Auth is kind of API key authentication. It works usually with a consumer together. You can, for example, add a key authentication to a service or route. And then the consumer can add their keys as a query string parameter or to the header to authenticate their requests against all endpoints. To enable Key Auth plugin, following two steps needs to be done. We need to first create a consumer object and set attributes of plugin Key Auth. I can jump into now to my terminal, and then I can run the following curl command, which says I need to enable I need to create a new consumer. If I enter and run the curl command and press enter, as you can see, we are creating the username consumer with example username, and then we are specifying plugins Key Auth with just a random key. Of course, here this key just for the simplicity. It's very leak, but you can use and set more stronger API keys. And as you can see, Apache APISIX server returns HTTP 200 OK with the following response, which says plugin for the given username is enabled. And after we enabled Key Auth plugin, we can create a new route and apply Key Auth plugin configuration. Let's bring another curl command to enable the plugin for the given route. It looks like this. We are accessing again admin API with route configuration, and so we are specifying the plugin by name, but as you can see, the JSON object value is for our case is empty. But there are some cases you can also customize the plugin, like for example, if you would like to give Key Auth header name not as API key, maybe something else, you can set here the key header differently. And for the demo purposes, I have prepared my upstream created. For more information, you can find how to create route and upstream and map this both together. You can watch my another video. So after I added this curl command and press enter, I can see the successful response out there. So now what we did, we created a consumer and we enabled the Key Auth plugin in route level, but of course you can also enable this route globally, or maybe for the service. So the final step now, we can test if authentication enabled for the given get endpoint. We are try to access get endpoint with HTTP get method. I can simply run curl command, something like that. And if I try to run this command, obviously I will get a missing API key found in the request, because we are not sending in the header API key, and now APISIX is enabled the plugin and we cannot get access. However, if we specify API key in the header, it should respond with a success. So let's run another command with API key header and with our simple API key value. So here we go. Great. We have a response from Apache APISIX server. Okay, as you can see, with a couple of steps, we enabled the API key authentication for the API. But we can also check another scenario when the user is trying to access the endpoint with the wrong API key, what will happen? I can run this below command, and here we go. So in this scenario, we are getting another unauthorized error from the server because you are using wrong API key. That's very simple. If you go to our Key Auth plugin documentation, you can also set the following attributes when you set let's say the header value, or if you would like to get API key not in the header but in the query, there is also option, but the default value, as I mentioned, is always API key. That's all about API Key Auth demo. Next is a JWT plugin that we are going to cover today and make a demo. If you go to again the plugin section on the authentication category, you can see JWT Authentication Plugin. This also requires us to have a consumer set up first, and then we can enable the JWT plugin for the route level or service level. In addition to this, you can for example use the JWT with a combination of vault. You can securely keep the JWT tokens in a centralized key management solution like a HashiCorp Vault. So in this tutorial we are not going to cover this stage, but now we can try to enable our JWT plugin. So in order to do so, we need to create first and set up a public API. Public API in our case acts as a server which signs the token. So you can take a look what's the public API in the Apache APISIX documentation. For the demo case, I have already set up this public API, so we can just test the JWT plugin now. The first thing is needs to be done as we did like for the basic authentication and the API key example. We need to create the user or consumer of this JWT plugin. Let's bring this command and create again the consumer with this plugin configuration. We have a key and secret based on we generate JWT plugin. I will run this curl command and press enter. So everything is right. Now is server is responding okay. The next step, we can now enable this JWT plugin for our given route. So I will bring another curl command and press enter. So, right, and now is good. Well, the next step is we need to validate if we are able to generate a new JWT token as mentioned above by using public API. Once we have a public API, you can simply run this command to create and assign JWT token for this user key for the consumer. I can press enter and run the command. As you can see, I have a token generated where I can reuse this token in the next step when I call the actual get endpoint with the authorization header inside the token. I can safely get this command and copy and paste JWT token generated by public API and put it here. So, and here we go. Now as you can see, we are able to access our get endpoint with JWT token authorization. There is no any authentication error, so everything is fine. But if you try to access the same endpoint without token in the header request, of course you will get HTTP error 401 as unauthorized. Let's go and run the following command without any authorization header. So obviously I will get I will get the error that we are missing JWT token in the request. As you followed up, we validated the client's identity attempting to request by using various authentication plugins with the help of Apache APISIX. You can also learn about more usability of other authentication plugins under authentication section, like how it works, OpenID Connect or LDAP. If you would like to also join our community, you can go to resources and community page. You can find out all necessary information, like you can join our Slack channel or subscribe to our mailing list. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out me. Thank you for watching.